born of the horde, conceived and never met him. Separated at my birth, and me cursed for what it's worth. I was shipped off at no cost. It was divine in the living. I was swaddled, took up north to be raised by a code of women. Raised by a group of women, I understood from love beginning. I was trained in the art to be elegant to the feminine. I described it from the mind. I was bad, it was hidden, so the gods couldn't stop me on my path to enlightenment from out through battle. Spiritually, I'm adept to battle. I slaughtered the media on the presidential status. Should be shot in the ass, talking Black Lives Matter. You don't know, it was headed by the truth towards Sorrow. The horn child proud with serpents. It's now was born from out the darkness I came. With my weapons in this thing. I butchered a person who walked who had no contribution to life. The way I perceive it, they downplaying death, upholding life. So I'm bold and out cold. How I speak, how I roll. I intimidate a troll with my heart, with my bow. You can't penetrate my aura, so don't try it. It won't work if I can't get you with my magic. It's my life to the throat.
All right, we're gonna start in a minute or two. Just gonna give a couple minutes for people to get in there. So we are live on Instagram, we are live on Facebook, and we are live on YouTube. The name of the track is by Brother Set Typhoon, Dionysus. This is a new one that he just sent me. It's one of the artists that's featured on the Hip Hop and Occult show. So let that roll for a minute. Play that so we get people up in here.
So after I kick ass, I gotta get myself between some legs. Break symbolize fertility and sacrifice, because when breaks come wine, it's often much heavier in my rhyme. I wake up out my sleep, I'm the god of ecstasy. I can find erotic in some of a woman's entire body. Take my time with my hands, they have eyes, they are strong. I'm feeling pleasure in the bone.
All right, greetings to all coming in. Appreciate that, Double R. But happy belated. We're gonna get into it in a minute.
And abundance also make me the god of fertility also. Sexuality I crave with my lascivious ways. I rate that code to the fast orgasm I use for we just said it before. I'm tired with my teeth, I kick ass spiritually to get pussy on some liquor. I'm the god of the band and the wine. It's some time. I'ma get myself out this body and transcend time. I told y'all before, I'm Dionysus with my teeth, I kick ass.
This is Dionysus
I'm the god
by Brother Set Typhoon. It's a new track that he just sent me. Got another brother, I gotta download it. I have another brother that sent me some stuff. I gotta transfer it over though. So I'll get to his stuff on the next one once I transfer it over. Let me see if I can pull that up. Hold on one sec. I don't think I can. I gotta transfer it. I'm gonna let that play again. Dionysus by Brother Set Typhoon. We're gonna get started here in a minute or two. All right.
The sixth born of the horde, conceived and never met him. Separated at my birth, and me cursed for what it's worth. I was shipped off at no cost. It was divine in the living. I was swaddled, took up north to be raised by a code of women. Raised by a group of women, I understood from love beginning. I was trained in the art to be elegant to the feminine. I described it from the mind. I was masked, it was hidden, so the gods couldn't stop me on my path.
All right, so give it another minute, couple minutes. Patience. So give people
on the presidential status. Should be shot in the ass, talking Black Lives Matter. You don't know, it was headed by the truth towards Sorrow. The horn child.
Hope everybody's doing well.
With my weapons in this thing, I butchered a person who walked who had no contribution to life. The way I perceive it, they downplaying death, upholding life. So I'm bold and out cold. How I speak, how I roll. I intimidate a troll with my heart, with my bow. You can't penetrate my aura, so don't try it. It won't work if I can't get you with my magic. It's my knife to your throat. I'm charismatic. Hell no, I don't shy away from status. I'm like a statue that was built in the ancient world with my status. I'm strong both mentally and physically. I'm not average, I'm not a savage. But I get the blood on the blade. I incarnated it. I said it before. I'm Dionysus with my teeth. I kick ass spiritually to get pussy on some liquor. I'm the god of the band and the wine. It's some time. I'ma get myself out this body and transcend time. I told y'all
give
before.
it to the 6 minute mark. Then I'm gonna go ahead and start.
I'm the god of the bag and the wine. It's some time. I'ma get myself out this body so I can transcend time. I'm the god of the bag and the wine. So after I kick ass, I gotta get myself between some legs. Break symbolize fertility and sacrifice, because when breaks come wine, it's often much heavier in my rhyme. I wake up out my sleep, I'm the god of ecstasy. I can find erogenous zones on a woman's entire body. Take my time with my hands, they have eyes, they are strong. I'm feeling pleasure pleasure in a bone. My electric and electric and my organic waves make them flinch. How detect watch and even though it is hit. By the time I'm done with this, the box is running like a pop. Why they walk more fast without even having to use my dick? My ability to produce an abundance offspring makes me the god of fertility also. Sexuality I crave with my licentious ways. I rate like only every time orgasm I use. So we just said it before. I'm Dionysus with my teeth. I kick ass spiritually and get pussy off some liquor. I'm the god of the band and the wine. It's some time. I'ma get myself out this body and transcend time. I told y'all before. I'm Dionysus with my teeth. I kick ass spiritually and get pussy off some liquor. I'm the god of the band and the wine. It's some time. I'ma get myself out this body so I can transcend time. Coming with this mythological shit. That's esoteric. You adept, Phil.
All right, that was brother Said Typhoon, Dionysus. That's a new track that he sent me. I got another brother. I'll be playing some of his stuff. I got to transfer it over, so I'll get him on the next run. So check out some of these new artists. We'll be featuring them on the Hip Hop and Occult show. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to get on here early today, a little earlier, due to some stuff got to do later. So we're going to get back on our information game. I'm going to just address a couple things quick in the beginning. I'm not really going to get into just, the fuckery that's going on. We know all the bullshit that's going on. So I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it's escalated to another level. Just to throw some comical shit out there. And again, we're not going to stay on this topic. We're not going to talk about, we're going to get back on our doctrine game and not get too sidetracked. Now they've removed their fucking Aunt Jemima from the pancake box, Uncle Ben. This was the most disgusting thing. The CEO or the owner from Chick-fil-A, I saw this morning and I wanted to crack up, is calling on all white Christians to apologize to black people for slavery. And he was in some meeting or conference and there was a black brother on stage. And he said, I'm going to start it off here. He gets up and he apologizes to the black guy for slavery. You can pull this shit up. I ain't making this up. And then he goes, sir, as a gesture of sincerity, I would like to shine your shoes. I can't even make this shit up. To me, that is so insulting because it tells you originally where his mindset is at. And again, and there was a comedian recently who was kind of siding what we were talking about last week. These things mean nothing. These things bring about no real change. And again, I'm not going to stay on this long, but it's just very insulting how they're trying to feed the masses crumbs as if this is going to bring about change. And that's a good point, Alex. Yeah, exactly. Offer him stock in the company. Make him a CEO if you wanted to see a nice gesture. Franchise, give him a set of franchise restaurants in his neighborhood. See, all that shit is fake white guilt, number one. Number two, that's just his polite way of saying he knows probably, and I'm just guessing, probably 65% or more of his customers are black. Okay. And he doesn't want them burning down his restaurants wherever they decide to loot. And this shit is just nonsense. How much more of these fake gestures? And now comedians are starting to speak out. Dave Chappelle said something. I can't think of the brother with the fro and the glasses. He was on a forum, and I'm glad he spoke out. Again, none of this brings about real change. If you're not putting people in positions of powers that can affect change, taking Aunt Jemima off the pancake box does absolutely nothing. Again, I just wanted to, if you didn't catch that, but the Chick-fil-A thing was really insulting. It's an insult to people's intelligence, okay? It's fake. And again, that's the way you get to the emotions, especially of melanated people. You get into their emotions and feelings, or you connect with their spirituality and their religion, especially Christianity, if they're bona fide, sanctified, saved. That's how you get at them. They know they're doing this intentionally. There's a concentrated effort to specifically strategize to get into people's emotions. And these things are it's getting comical by the minute. And we talked about the shit from last week. I don't know what's next. Are they going to take Angels food cake off the shelves because it's white and it's saying that all angels are white? I mean, what's next? What kind of stupidity is next? Are we going to Are we going to now eliminate the game of pool because we hit a black ball around? A white ball bounces all the balls around, and the last ball it puts in the pocket is a black ball. So it's the game of pool racist now. I mean, what other dumb, stupid, petty shit are we going to do that they're going to try to keep force feeding you as change? Okay. Oh, and the other one was Mrs. Butterworth. They're not going to shape the bottle like Mrs. Butterworth because that's racist. The Florida Gators can't do this no more. Now all of a sudden sports teams want to change. The Redskins and the Cleveland Indians are changing their logos. Stop, people. Stop. Again, fake white guilt. That's not going to make a difference or a change. Okay. I'll be impressed when I see more black judges on a local, state, and federal level, more Supreme Court black or Latino judges. When I see more black and Latino police chiefs, I'll be impressed. More black and Latino CEOs and in positions of power that really make a difference. Until I see that, this is all illusionary change. And they don't care. They'll let you be out there all day and protest for the next 6 months to a year. They couldn't care. As long as now they feel like they got it under control and they can just force feed you these pacifying temporary moments. Like I say, hopefully this doesn't turn out like everything else did. But anyway, not to stay on that. I don't want to stay on that. We tackled enough of that last week. I want to get back on the information game. Let's talk about our doctrine, our path. That's important. So I figured I came across this. I know a few months back, a couple videos we visited some of the working heads of Leviathan. I want to go back into that, and I want to talk about the technique that you see on the screen, erotic crystallization inertia. You may not be familiar with it, but we're going to talk about that today. And this is about, now mind you, this is in the Apophis book from Michael Kelly, a book I've recommended a bunch of times. I think every black magician should read it, regardless if it's a path you practice or not. If you don't work with the Apophian or the Draconian energy, that's fine. I still would definitely read this book and get it in your library because it covers important topics. Now, there's something in there Michael Kelly is talking about that I've been talking about for years and long before I even read this book that I kind of want to go through. But I want to say this. It talks about addressing your emotional makeup. It talks about going back to key moments in your life. I've always talked about how you address trauma and how things affect you and how you deal with certain things is not by avoiding them, is by addressing them. So that's kind of what the process talks about. But there's also something he talks about in between the fifth and the sixth head, which I see still is a problem amongst a lot of people to this very day as we speak. All right. And what is that problem? Not being able to let go of past things that you've been attached to on your spiritual path. It's right here in the book. So this stood out to me. I was reading this the other day. I said, you know what? I'm going to talk about this on the next YouTube video. This is what is the large part of the problem, because when you can't let go of old ways and old spiritual practices and old ways of thinking, this is why you see the ignorance that you're seeing today. Why people are approaching what's going on in the world today with ignorance, whether it's the COVID shit or whether it's all this protesting and all the other stuff. People are still coming from an old way of thinking and an old mindset because they can't let go of those old ways that are holding them back. What am I talking about? The dumb shit that I was talking about last week, where people think, regardless of what your personal faith beliefs are, as if some spooky spirit force is going to come and fix everything for you. It's not going to happen. Okay. And if you believe that personally, then that's what it is. It's personal. But I can tell you, bottom line, if you don't get off your ass and do something for yourself, nothing will change. So we see people from a multitude of perspectives with all of the crazy shit that's going on right now in the world. We have classifications of groups of people who can't let old ways or thinking go. Okay. We got people who are super religious and they think it's the apocalypse, the end of the world. Look, you can attribute any news event and people have been doing this for years since I can remember, and attribute it to somewhere where it resonates in the Bible and make it look like, okay, this is what's going on. It's very easy to do that. And anybody that's read and studied the Bible knows that. It's very easy to take a plague or a war or some type of apocalypse or tragedy and kind of tie it into modern day, current day events. Very easy to do that. If you study and you know your Bible. We got those people. We've got the so-called conscious religious occult people that we talked about last week, who basically are using watered down occult concepts, incorporating a whole bunch of shit mixed in, whether it's Ifa, Santeria, Egyptian Kemetic stuff. And, it's the ancestors are coming back to get revenge, or it's Shango and Obatala because some storm or lightning ripped through or tore something up. That's Shango and Oya. Stop. Okay. Old ways of thinking, old paths of spirituality, that's not going to bring about any change. And when you carry that into a day and time where we're living in, where we're in a serious mental and spiritual transformation that's taking place all over this planet, it's time for a new way of thinking. It's time for a new approach, because that shit's not going to work. It didn't work up until this point. See, we never ask ourselves this question, all right? To see when we measure up, whether it's African spiritual, traditional practices against faith. Remember, these are the same gods that put a lot of these ancestors in slavery. Where were they when slavery took place? See, we talk about the atrocity of what Europeans did, but did we ever question the spiritual practices of the gods or the deities that rule over those systems allowed this slavery to happen? We don't want to address that because it gets people too emotional. So this is why I've always had a problem with people that belong to these race-based spiritual doctrines, whether it's the Black Hebrew Israelites, whether it's some Kemetic group, and God is black and the original this and black that, and the ancient Egyptians were black and the deities were black. That's cool. I agree with all that. But here's the problem I got. You're telling me to put everything aside and worship and glorify your Egyptian or your Ifa or your Santeria God. But when I ask the simple question, well, you're telling me to take an allegiance or a side with that God because the white man has duped and deceived us, but did not your black God allow that shit to happen? Okay? There's no answer for that. Then people get offended when you say that. What are you talking about? Again, you're telling me to give allegiance to your black Yahweh, if you're a black Hebrew Israelite, or your black El Elo, or your black Amun Ra or Heru, and these are the original gods, and these are our ancestors, and we come from this great lineage. Sounds good, but then when I ask a simple question, and you're telling me this needs to be done to avoid falling into the indoctrinated teachings of the slave master, but did not that same God allow the slave master to take over, rule, and control? And if so, why and how? That's my whole point. Nobody wants to discuss it. I'm not talking about us per se, that who I would assume are aware of this. I'm talking about the people who are not, who claim to be part of these doctrines that are so 100%, anybody that first comes to either I'm the right and everybody else is wrong, that right out the gate, you already know what you're in store for. Anybody that thinks their doctrine is 100% right and everybody else is wrong, right there's a problem out the gate, I can tell you, okay? So the bottom line I'm trying to get to, the only God that's going to bring about change in your life is you. It's that simple. If you don't get off your ass and do something for yourself, nothing is going to change. Now, you might say, well, listen, brother, I'm a Christian, or I practice Ifa, and Shango and Obatala and Oya have blessed me, and Jesus has blessed me. Okay, your personal faith in that. Now, you might think you could attribute it to some external spirit force, but what really gives that power is the personal faith in that belief that you put in it. There's a difference between personal faith and religious faith. But look at people who are bona fide sanctified Christians. When I present this theory, people again get pissed off. I've asked this many times to pastors and reverends and priests. I say, excuse me, when you watch a tragedy unfold on TV, okay, and say it's a plane crash, we've all seen this. I'm going to use a tragedy such as a plane crash, which is a tragedy. Anybody that dies in a tragedy like that, it's fucked up. And then you'll see in the past, they've interviewed survivors, and they'll interview the survivor, and they'll say, praise God that I survived. Praise God that I made it. And I always used to think to myself, you know what's fucked up about that? The same God you're giving praise to that you survived the crash is the same God that killed everybody else in that same plane crash. Okay? And nobody talks about that. So what is the whole point? The point is stop connecting it to your religious concept, because when we're dealing with energy and energy as a whole and the polarity of it, we as humans have to break down the degree and vibration to feel comfortable. If it's good, it's God. If it's bad, it's the devil. But keep in mind, when a tragedy happens, like a plane crash or a mass shooting, and somebody, and I understand why they're saying it, it's how they were raised and programmed. They don't know no better, majority of them. They say some dumb shits like, thank God I got out and I survived. Thank God, praise God. God was looking out for me. Well, I guess God wasn't looking out for the rest of the people that died in that horrific tragedy, okay? This is how we must think to remove the ignorance. And once you start thinking in the correct capacity, you won't use those old ways of thinking anymore. That's the whole point. And once you start looking at it in its totality and realize it's basically things are mapped out in your life based on the choices and the decisions you make. It's that simple. Okay? And I'm not talking about that spooky ass religious concept of karma that people like to pass on. Karma's just cause and effect. If, for an example, you make a conscious decision to go to some club or some place where you know there's high crime activity and shit pops off, but you know you want to think with the weaker part of yourself, I'm gonna go there because there's gonna be some hoes there, and you know it's not a safe place. So you've made a conscious decision to go to this place knowing there's a good percentage something crazy could pop off. So what's the cause and effect? The cause, you made the conscious decision to go to this spot knowing full well and knowing in your mind something could pop off. And if you do happen to go there and something pops off and you get hurt, then that's the effect. It's that simple. We try to make this shit super spooky and super spiritual. So there is no external spirit force going to intervene for what's going on right now. Okay? I don't care what you call it. And if you use that on a personal level, I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem is when you try to pump it to the masses. That's when I have a problem. If you want to use a God concept, a Jesus concept, a Shango or Oya concept for your own personal perspective, that's fine, but please keep it personal. Don't try to fucking pump that Kool-Aid to the masses and then get pissed off when people don't co-sign on it. So I've taken the approach, I'm not waiting around for anything or anybody to come back and do shit for me. I made that decision years ago, okay? Because I found out that's a poor person's mentality, not financially, mentally and spiritually. I'm not waiting for pie in the sky. I'm not waiting for some great reward later, because that's an ignorant person's way of thinking, okay? The only way I know if things are going to change, I need to take action myself in the moment. Okay, I'm not sitting around waiting for a vaccine or a cure, okay? I'm trying to figure out how to maneuver around this shit, keep my livelihood flowing, make the connections and the contacts I need to make, and keep things productive. And there is a way to do it. But if you're blinded by ignorance, you just don't see it because you tap into the energy and the spirit of hopelessness and despair. And then you get pumped with the Kool-Aid that the media is feeding you. And then the mind starts wandering with all these fanatics, with the conspiracy theories. I told you, where are all my 5G people at? Where's all the 5G people? You notice how that shit died out? You notice how nobody's talking about 5G causing coronavirus no more? Because I said it. Go back and watch my videos in late March and April. It's all bullshit, okay? And I presented one simple question to the 5G conspiracy theories, and not one of them has answered it to this day. If you believe, due to the ionized radiation, that 5G was causing a mutation in the cells to activate the virus in our immune systems, the question I have is, why did it seem like back then and even till this day that very small children seem to be less affected by it? You would think they'd be more of a target because their immune systems are less developed. So why small children, adolescents to young teens are rarely getting it? Because don't tell me ionized radiation has specific targets and it was only targeting ionized. Nobody What they were claiming, nobody could fight that off, regardless of how old you are and how well your immune system was developed. So because that didn't pan out, all the 5G conspiracy theories ran away. You don't see them no more. You don't hear them no more. Nobody's talking. You know why? Because it's not the end thing to talk about. So that conspiracy goes to the roadside, on to the next nonsense and bullshit. Okay? I told you, look at a bigger picture. This is global reset. We talked about that last week. I'm going to get into all that right now. It's about changing your way of thinking. Nothing can change until you start to change the way you think. So taking Aunt Jemima off the pancake box and the CEO from Chick-fil-A demanding all white Christians to apologize to black people for slavery does absolutely nothing. Okay? Absolutely nothing. Real change comes when certain people obtain positions of power. We're going to have to take what we need. And there's ways of taking it. I'm not talking about breaking the law and committing crimes. We got to do what they did, infiltrate. You got to get in the system. Get them bullshit degrees you need to get up into the education system to change the way of thinking. Get that degree. Don't sit there and complain about the law and reform. If we can't get no black judges, black police chiefs, and Latino police chiefs in there, local, state, and federal judges. That's where real reform in law and change is going to come. But the only way we're going to be able to realistically do that, you could protest for the next 6 months, 6 years. If we don't encourage our children to go into these professions and these careers, nothing's going to change. So I'm using it. It's a very simple approach. If you change the approach, things change. So you could be marching in the streets all day. We shall overcome, and I can't breathe. And I respect what them people are doing, but we got to make sure we have a focus. What's the overall plan? What's the overall objective here? Because it's got to be bigger than just protesting, because they'll let you do that shit till you can't walk no more. But when and how do you bring about the change? So let's talk about, not to stay on that, because you know I can start rolling on that shit for a minute. Erotic crystallization inertia, dealing with trauma, past energy, connecting to aspects of yourself that need work. I've talked about this for years, how you go back. It's considered a form of time travel magic, right? How you go back in time to key moments in your life and address issues that need to be repaired or corrected. I also teach and show this when, for those that are in the Red Magus mentorship program, and I didn't even run through shit. Totally forgot about quick announcements. Let me run through those real fast before I begin in the beginning, then we'll get into it. Just a reminder, this Saturday, which is tomorrow, the 20th, for those that are members on the Patreon page, we have the Leviathan ritual tomorrow for members tier 3, 4, and 5. That's going to be a live Leviathan ritual, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those that are tier 3, 4, and 5 on the Patreon, that'll be the Leviathan ritual for you guys tomorrow, 3 Eastern Time. If you can't make it live, if you are a member, it will be uploaded. You'll be able to watch the recording of it. But don't forget to tune in there. For those that are not members of the Patreon, I encourage you to check out the channel, patreon.com/Beniti. I have now included, I started about a month and a half ago, the Red Magus mentorship program, which is now over 10 people and growing. And we discuss and go in depth a little bit, not a little bit, a lot more than here. And I take you through a step-by-step process of how to develop your path of personal growth or your personal path to self-mastery. But as I've said before, please only apply to that program if you're serious and you're going to do work. Don't waste your time and don't waste my time. It is work. It's not a club. You're not just going to get shit to read. You're going to be able and have to be able to perform work. And it's a back and forth regular dialogue with myself and you to help develop that path. Also, we have the Santa Muerte class, which is next Saturday, not this Saturday, the 27th. That's going to be 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to about 6:30 p.m. That'll be done on a private Zoom video class. That class is open for all to sign up. The information's on the Patreon page. I'm sorry, not the Patreon page. It has nothing to do with Patreon. On the Instagram page and on the Facebook page. The simple way to sign up for that class, you just send a PayPal using the canum19@gmail.com address. It's $55 to take the class. And in the PayPal notes, very important that you include your name and your email address so I know where to send the link for the class. Because again, as I've said many times before, sometimes somebody has somebody else pay for them with their PayPal and I send the link to them. And then right before the class starts, I get an email, I didn't get the link. Well, I'm going to send the link to wherever the PayPal came from. So please, in your PayPal notes, when you pay for the Santa Muerte class, include your name and email address. We will be covering all 7 aspects of the Holy Death. I'm going to show you how you work with each aspect. Her blue aspect deals with family-related issues, peace in the home, repairing relationships, how to create healing energy in certain areas of your life. The red aspect is going to deal with sex magic, working with aggression, how to channel that aggression. It also deals with if you have to launch spiritual attacks of protection. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to get further. We'll talk about her white aspect, which deals with overall health and well-being. We're going to talk about her black aspect, which deals with destructive magic, connecting with the spirits of the dead. We're going to talk about her gold aspect, which is I call the Golden Lady of Death, my mamacita, because she can really help you and open doors to finances. We'll talk about the green aspect, which deals with justice and the law. We're going to get into all of that. We'll talk about her 3-crone existence or trifold existence. We're going to get into all of those aspects, but I'm going to show you in detail how you work with her, not from a religious perspective, not from a voodoo, hoodoo, Christianized perspective. We're going to take it back to the goddess of the underworld. All right. I'm going to show you how you communicate with her. If you do decide to make that connection with her, she's a very powerful spirit to work with. All right. So that's on the 27th, next Saturday, 3 to 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Journey of the Black Adept Conference still on until further notice. That is October 30th to November 1st. So that's still on and popping until further notice. If you are interested in a spiritual reading, which is either a demonic reading with the archdemons, the Goetia, and the 12 princes of hell, or if you're interested in a Santa Muerte reading in the spirits of the dead, shoot me an email. Or if you're interested in a consultation, which is basically a free-for-all, if you want to discuss any topic, you can kind of utilize that time how you see fit to talk about whatever you want. Or shoot me an email with the days and times you are available. And we will set a day and time that works for both of us. Please include your time zone. Also, I'm probably going to have to go back to the 2-day schedule to schedule these because beginning Monday, I will be going back into the office for work. Sucks ass. I've been enjoying actually this time working at home. So I'm probably going to have to go back to my original schedule. So beginning Monday, I will not have as much free time as I have due to the fact I have to be back in the office on Monday morning, unfortunately. Anyway, so for any of those things, shoot me an email. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. The more likes the videos get, it expands out to more people. Also, hit the notification bell when you subscribe so you get a notification when I go live. All right? All right, so erotic crystallization inertia. What is it if you never heard of it? And if you don't know what it is, be honest. You might have first heard about it through Anton LaVey. It's something he talked a bit about. If you're familiar with the satanic rituals and the satanic Bible, and you should, though I've talked many times before, remember, the satanic Bible was written in 1966. A lot of LaVey's publications came out in the mid to late 60s, early 70s, so keep in mind the climate that was going on back then. There's some concrete information in his books that stand the test of time. In my opinion, there's stuff that is outdated due to the fact from the 1960s, obviously to 2020, a lot of things have changed. So always understand when you're reading his work, keep in mind the year that it was written and where he was at that time and what was going on. Very important. All right, so erotic, and I'm going to be going through, I believe this is chapter, the 6th head in Michael Kelly's Apophis book. The section on erotic crystallization inertia. What is ECI? A term coined by Anton LaVey to describe how certain key events become locked within a person's mind and can be used to turn the clock back to a time at which they happen. I always talk about this through time travel. I always use this as a methodology to do real shadow work. Because it's one thing to
unveil traumas that are affecting you in your life through shadow work, but it's a whole nother process trying to fix them and correct them. All right. The phase refers specifically to those images and circumstances which are imprinted in the brain when an individual first experiences sexual awakening, or as. Those who understand these keys can determine someone's fetishes and hot buttons at a glance. For an example, and the author used this example. He's using the sex energy to give you an example of how this works. When he went through puberty, at that time, the Sex Pistols were at the peak of their notoriety in the United Kingdom. So any girl with a punky haircut and general appearance is always going to instantly command my attentions. The image has been hardwired into my brain by the changes my body underwent at the time and will instantly retrigger that response. So now liken this to you as a male or a female. All right. Dee Dee, thank you for the donation. Think about you. Everybody has a preference that they like sexually, a certain look. Think about it for a minute. There's a reason why you gravitated towards that look. It could have been as a male or a young boy. It could have been that you saw a certain thing when you were smaller. Maybe a female had a hair or she was wearing it a certain way, and it caught your attention when you were 12 or 13 years old. And it was so, as the author describes, it was ingrained and hardwired into your mind that it stayed with you. And as you matured, you kept gravitating towards that. I'm using something basic and simple. This is a fact. Whether it's body type, whether it's certain likes of food, you could have been introduced to a certain food when you were smaller, and it was at a very productive or pleasant moment in your life. And every time you eat that food or connect with it, whether you're conscious of it or not, it takes you back. Let me give you an example. Say the first time you had a slice of a certain pastry or something, right? And say the first time you had this particular pastry, it was from a joyous moment or a joyous occasion in your life. And from that point on, every time you eat it, it incites that energy every time you connect with and eat it. The sense of smell can do that when it comes to food. Food is a crazy thing because food can activate all of those energies. And it could work the reverse too. It could connect you with maybe something that wasn't positive. This is all what this science is talking about. And this is a powerful tool if you know how to use it. So I want to throw some of those examples out. All right. Then it goes on and says, the phenomenon is not limited to sexual, of course. He was just using that example. But Marcel Proust and his Aller Recherche du Temps Perdu is a good example. When a cake, and I was using the food thing here, a cake dipped in tea throws the mind back to his childhood, and he is able to relive an associated memory in its fullness. So this guy's using the example of there was a certain cake he used to eat as a child, and it was dipped in tea. And it's anytime he reenacts that same cake dip, which is fucking crazy, but it's real, it takes him back to that energy. And it takes him back to that specific moment, and he can relive that memory in its fullness. What does that say for the power of our minds? And if it could work in that, it could also work in reverse and create fucked up ways of thinking. It could also trigger bad habits. It could also trigger indoctrinated methods of programming. So we have to be able to identify both sides of it, is what I'm trying to tell you. The use of the ECI as a device for transcending time is reliant upon a very high degree, here's the key, wait for it, self-knowledge. Not outside knowledge of yourself, not knowledge from some structured dogma, philosophy, or religion, not knowledge belonging to some group that has a complete rigged structure. No, not that knowledge. Knowledge of self, having self-knowledge, knowing every aspect of yourself. This is important, people. This is one of the key pillars of this path, real shadow work, okay? All right, then it goes on to say, we need to know what triggers these memories and chart what time of our lives the triggers send us back to. Hear that? For example, I can still remember, this is the author talking now, my first ever cup of coffee, right? And by preparing coffee in a certain way, not my usual way, this is a secret arcanum reserved only for time travel magic. I can cast my mind back to when I was 9 years old in an extraordinary, vivid way. I've been saying this shit for years, people, with music. I could do that with music on the fly. I can take any song, and this is why music is such a vital part of life. We all can tap into music we used to like when we were younger, right? To show you exactly what the author is talking about here, Michael Kelly. Anybody right now, we could do this together as a group. Think of a song that you used to like when you were younger. I don't care if it was your teenage years, depending on how old you are, when you were in your early 20s, whether you were a small child. Think about a specific song. I'm gonna give you 20, 30 seconds to get it in your head. One song that stands the test of time, no matter how many times you hear it, it resonates with you, all right? Think about anything. All right. I'm going to assume most of you have at least a song in your head, all right? Now, I want you to think for a moment the first time you ever heard that song, okay? Think for a moment. Try to place yourself where you heard that song for the very first time. And if you really think hard enough, you can really remember what you could see yourself and how you looked. If there's other people that were around you, you can even see them. You can even sometimes recollect exactly the clothing you were wearing. Sometimes you can get as vivid and detailed as what the exact day and year it was, what season, whether it was spring, winter, summer, fall. And then it triggers these moments where then you might remember, because that song sticks out and triggers what this is talking about, you might remember the whole course of those events day. If you really start to probe, you can start to remember every detail. And let's just say, as I've said before in the past, let's say it was maybe your parents were playing the song. And maybe at that time that song was being played, your mother was making one of your favorite foods in the kitchen. And if you think hard enough on it and reflect hard enough, you can smell the food that she was cooking. I'm trying to show you how powerful this shit is. And I'm trying to show you how real magic works when you know how to apply it with your mind. You can connect with all that. This is how this process works, okay? And we got to use this technique, one, to do the work we need to do to correct certain things we need to correct about ourselves, okay? Oh, man, this goddamn shit is bugging out. It looks like the Instagram's wigging out on me, people. I might have to reboot it. Hold on. Give me 1 sec. We're going to reboot this. All right, so let me continue. I wanted to throw that in there, all right? The initiate now finds a new list to begin in his trusty diary, a record of those memories which constitute ECI, erotic crystallization inertia. The keys and effectively transport his consciousness, or hers, back in time. The list of the erotic triggers. Now, when you hear the word erotic, it just doesn't mean sex. Erotic means anything that's stimulating. So keep that in mind. Will be aided by the work that we have already done under the fifth head, codifying our desires and fetishes. Now the initiate can trace these back and discover the earliest memories to which they are attached. So there's a twofold process. Some of those memories are going to be good, and it's good to have an attachment to them. And some of them are not going to be productive for you. And you're going to have to realize through this work and process that you need to shed some of them. One of the works of Apophis or Apep is shedding your skin like a snake so you can regrow a new one. Because that's what a snake does when it sheds its skin. What does it do after that, people? It regenerates and regrows a new skin. That's one of the central themes of working with the Apophis energy or the Apep energy. You learn to die and be reborn and resurrect yourself constantly on this path by doing work and making productive change. Hold on 1 sec. Trying to bring this back up. All right, that's coming up. We'll get that in a minute. So hopefully everybody is following me and we're not getting lost here. All right. Then it goes on to say, now the initiate can identify the point at which these things arose. You will have to be diligent in order to capture the more general keys. However, making note every time some sense, impression, or incident triggers a vivid memory, you should trace it, write it down, and record it. Trace it back to its point of origin or its roots, write it down, and record it. I'm trying to show you. I usually don't go this detailed, but I'm trying to show you. People say, how do you do shadow work? Because people think they're going to just read it or find some ritual in a book to do. And no, this is some shit you got to do for yourself. This is some work, some investigative work you got to do on yourself. It doesn't work like that, people. Hold on one second. So I'm trying to show you detailed ways on how to do this to the best of my ability. What the fuck? Get to that in 1 second. Instagram just like went berserk. All right. So once you have the temporal keys in your possession, you can begin to take use of them. Here are a couple of suggestions. All right. This is what they call a rite of rejuvenation. What the hell's going on here? Oh, there we go. All right, the first purpose for which we will employ ECI, I'm just going to use the abbreviation. All right, hold on 1 sec. This thing bugging the fuck out. All right. Getting back on Instagram, people. We got disconnected. All right. We are back live on Instagram. If you are on there, sorry that you got booted out. I got bad rain and storming here right now. Set's busy right now. That's spooky. See, I got spooky there. Set's busy right now. Stop. All right. Then it goes on to say, sorry. I couldn't resist that. All right. The rite of rejuvenation, the first purpose for which we will employ ECI is to reach back into our own past, and in doing so, short out the time differential between the then and the now, okay? Allowing us to enjoy the rejuvenating effects of exposure to our younger selves. The purpose of this rite is to promote vitality and longevity. And I've said this before, the science of this is, keep this in mind. You will notice, and I'll go back to using music. I'll go back to using the science of music. All right. You will notice when you listen to music of your era, you feel more rejuvenated, young, and energized. Be real with yourself. If you go back and listen to music when you were a teenager, what you're really doing is healing cells and rejuvenating cells within your body, literally, whether you're conscious of it or not. Because you're using this process of ICI. It's taking you back to that very moment of rejuvenation. And you cut out the in between the then and the now. You eliminate how you got to the point you are now, feeling a certain way you might feel now, and you're locked in to that particular moment. And that's why I use music a lot to confirm this. Now, be real. If you're an older person, let's say 40 and above, such as myself, who recently just turned 49, if you listen to some of the newer music, right, you start to feel like, damn, you can feel kind of old, or you could feel like you can't, it's a disconnect because it's not resonating with you. And I know, I'm not saying all, but most people I do know in my age group will probably tell you that. And probably the ones that won't, they're just hanging on and in denial. They're probably that old creepy dude that's in their 40s and 50s hanging out in clubs where there's teenagers and girls in their 20s because they're in denial that they're getting old. That's probably that creepy dude. You know, the creepy dude walks around in a club swinging his keys and says, "Hey, girl," you know, you're probably that dude if you can't connect to what I'm saying. But that's the power of this, okay? That's the power of this, all right? So I just want to throw that in there, and I'll get to your questions and your comments as soon as I'm done. I see you guys are typing stuff in, so get those questions and comments in, so when I get to that portion soon, I'll be able to answer those things. All right, the evocation of the memory is achieved by surrounding yourself with sensory keys relating to it and objects and props that are pertinent to that time, okay? So you start connecting. You might have had a certain car you were driving that year. So say it's a song from 87, 88. You remember the car you were driving. And then all of a sudden you see yourself in the car. You might be able to smell the air freshener. You see the seats, the color of the car. And then the mind starts getting triggered. You remember certain events or moments that took place in that car. It could be that too, yes. But maybe not just that. Maybe you remember specific places where you went in that car. You might remember a special night where you and your friends were hanging out one night in that car. I can recollect that when I, for an example, the Public Enemy album, when that first came out, the second album, Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back. I remember my boy George got his first car in 1977 Gran Torino. He was the first one in the group that got a car. And I have, every time I play that album, I have vivid memories of us driving around in the cold ass winter of 1987, freezing our ass off, cranking that. Well, then cassette. We didn't have CD players yet. We were still rocking cassettes. If you were lucky, you had remember the Alpine or the Kenwood cassette decks, and you had your little box, and you had your speakers hooked up. You were the shit, right? But every time I play that album, I could remember everybody was in that car. When we used to drive around, my boy Brian, my good friend Keith was in there, my boy Mike Sharma, me, George. I just remember us driving around, and we'd hit the White Castle. It was like a religious ritual on the weekends. I mean, we all had goose down. I could smell the cologne that we all used to wear. I'm going old school now. Drakkar, y'all remember? Drakkar, Cool Water. That's old school shit. I don't want to say Old Spice or High Karate, because that's really old school. But I could see that. I could smell that. I could see the streets. I could see exactly where we were driving, what part of the city or what town we were in. It gets so vivid just by attaching to the memory of that car. It gets so vivid. I could see us all sitting in White Castle. I could see exactly the tables we were sitting at. I could see what my boy Keith was wearing. I could see what George was wearing. I remember specific conversations. Why? Because you're going back to a time of rejuvenation, okay? Rejuvenation. What does the word rejuvenate to mean? It's like it recharges you. It gives you a whole influx of energy. And when you learn to do this, I'm trying to give you a jewel here, how to do real shadow work, and hopefully you catching up on it. This is what we do on this path. We don't sit around, wait for shit to happen. We make it happen. Now I want to talk about another process. How can you fix something traumatic? All right. You can fix something traumatic, and I've talked about this before, but let me reiterate it again if you never caught it in the past. Let me say this again. You could use this same concept. Say you used to walk home from school in middle school or junior high school, and you used to get bullied by a couple of dudes or a group of people, right? And there was several, or maybe there was a specific traumatic event that sticks out to you in your life. So how you get by it, how you rejuvenate yourself to go ahead and move forward, you recreate that exact event and put yourself and visualize yourself. Say it was, you remember it was, let's say in the fall or the winter. And you remember because there was a lot of leaves or snow on the ground. And you remember a specific incident. Say it was a couple days before Halloween. So now the memories of Halloween start coming in, right? And now it starts to get more vivid because you're taking yourself back to a specific moment, okay? So you're dead at a specific moment. And then you get so vivid to the point where you start to replay the exact scenario that created the effect or the trauma. So you see yourself maybe at that moment, they're attempting to pick on you, bully you, or jump you. So now, when you're at that moment, this is at the point you reverse the circumstances. So instead of you maybe getting bullied or beat up, you do the bullying and beating up. And you will find that creates a rejuvenating, healing aspect. So how you can look forward and close that gap from traumas that took place way back then that you're still carrying now, whether you're conscious of it or not. And that's how you close the gap. That's how you do the work. Now, I'm not going to get into, there's more depth and detail to it. I don't have the time to get into that right here. I'm just trying to give you some quick jewels of how you can do this, okay? This is called doing real work. We're not armchair magicians, okay? We don't just sit in our chairs and read books on magic and then profess a bunch of shit that we know. We don't do that. I know I don't do that. And I don't allow anybody in my circle that does that. And that's why I said the mentorship program on the Patreon page, the Red Magus mentorship program, the goal and the objective is to make you a full-fledged working magician, not from my perspective. I'm not trying to shape and mold you with my perception of magic. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to show you, I'm just the vessel assisting you. I'm trying to show you how you lay out your own path to self-mastery, how you lay out systems and things that work for you. I'm not trying to force you to see it through my eyes. I'm not trying to force you to accept everything I say, because that's just not practical. That's just not a reality, okay? You've got to learn to make the adjustments and the changes and the things you need to do for yourself, because everybody's situation is different. That's why not one particular path or system works for everybody. This is why I would assume majority of us are here, because we did all the Kemetic things and the Ifa things and the Santeria things and the Palo stuff. And it got us to a certain point, but we felt like there's more. And then some of us started feeling really limited and constricted. Some of us started feeling like we were slaves of servitude. Because you know how it goes in Ifa or Santeria, you do this, then it's this. And you got to do this ceremony. And you need to do this initiating. You need to get your Lekes. You need to get your warriors. You need to get the hand of a ruler. You need to get your mages. You need to do that. Well, it's on and on and on and on and on. Then we start saying to ourselves, damn, at what point does the serving stop? And when do I become the chief focal point in this? I feel, and how does this differ from religion? This is the shit that I'm talking about. These are the things that are going to change the old ways of thinking. And once you change the old ways and you bridge that gap, as it's talking about here, this is when the change starts to happen. Because as I said earlier, and it's not to hurt nobody's feelings, it's actually to step on your skulls and smash your skulls with reality. There is no external force coming back to help you. Get that through your head. The quicker you realize that, the better off you'll be. And you won't be part of the masses of sheeple who are waiting for something that's just not going to happen. And the powers that be, whatever you want to call them, as long as they can keep pumping this religious stupidity on you, they know they got you in a mindset where they can control you. Because here's how the science is. It's real simple, people. If I control your emotions through fear, I can get you to do whatever I want you to do. And that's what we got going on. We're being controlled through our emotions. So let's take Aunt Jemima off the pancake box. Let's get the CEO of Chick-fil-A to apologize, to demand all white Christians to apologize to black people for slavery. That'll do it. Because what did I do? I know how to get into the hearts and emotions of black people is through their emotions of fear and their spirituality. So let me do that. That'll get them on my side when it's all fake white guilt. Trust me when I tell you. And it will bring about no real change. Because if you embrace that and you accept that, you're still in an old way of thinking. That's like saying, I'm sitting at the table. Here you go, peasant. Here's a few crumbs that fell off the master's table. Go ahead. You can get those crumbs. You ain't getting what's on the table here, the main course. You ain't getting the roasted chicken and the potatoes and the vegetable and the salad. You want to get my scraps of bread and the crumbs that fall off the table when I eat. You can have that shit, but I ain't going to give you what's on the table. You can cook, you can buy the groceries and cook them and serve them to me, but you can't eat them, motherfuckers. That's what they basically telling you. And let me tell you something. For that CEO, owner of Chick-fil-A to do that shit on national TV is downright disrespectful and embarrassing. And people, if you think that that was a powerful gesture, it's comical. When he got up and said, sir, he walked over to that black man sitting in the chair and said, sir, I apologize for all white Christians in the world for slavery, and to show you, and to show you my sincerity, just I would like to shine your shoes. The man had a shoe shine box and started shining this dude's shoes. What the fuck? So it tells me what he thinks of black people in his head. That he's confessing to you how he looked at black people as nothing but a bunch of shoe shining servants. Because I'm sure he's had a few black people buff and shine his shoes. I'm just keeping it real, people. I ain't trying to make this racial. You know I don't like to get into that. You know I embrace all races and all people. But I got to keep this real. This is 100%. And again, this is not racism. This is facts. I don't turn anybody away. I don't care what your ethnicity is. I don't care what your sexuality is. You could be black, white, Asian, Latino, gay, or straight. All are welcome on this path. I want to put that out there because I don't want my words to get misconstrued. I'm not promoting hate, and I'm not promoting division and separation. I'm just telling you the way it is. That's a fact. Because when I watched that, what I got out of that, because remember, we're critical thinkers on this path. I didn't get out of that like he was doing something heavy and sincere. I said, man, that shit is disrespectful. He just basically was telling everybody subliminally, whether you caught it or not, how he used to project black people. He looked at them as a bunch of shoe shining servants. Why the fuck did he choose the shoe shine box? Like somebody typed in earlier, I could admit, if he was really sincere, he said, sir, out of my token of appreciation, I'm going to give you a restaurant. I'm going to franchise a restaurant for you. I'm going to give you stock in the company. Or, sir, I'm going to offer you a CEO position in Chick-fil-A. That shit would have got my attention, and that would have impressed me a great deal. Then I would have said, you know what? He's coming from a real place. But to bring out a motherfucking shoe shine box and sir, I want to shine your shoes. This fucking crazy, man. What kind of fuckery are they trying to run on the masses? And if anybody thought there was anything good that came out of that, you need help. You need help. Because I know if I was that dude sitting in that chair, I would have said, sir, please get the fuck up. That is very disrespectful and insulting to me. That is not the way you express a token of sincerity. Again, offer me a CEO position in your company. I'll show you I'm capable of doing it. I'm not telling you to give it to me for free. Tell me you're going to franchise a Chick-fil-A in my neighborhood and I'm going to own it and run it. You got my attention. And I'll be the first to put my personal ego aside and say, you know what, that's real. I ain't got no ego where I can't admit that, but I also don't have an ego where I'm going to sit back and be insulted by that gesture. And I don't care what ethnicity you are, Latino, black, white, Asian, you should have been insulted by that. That shit was insulting. Okay? I don't care what anybody says. Watching that was just insulting. And I say that, one, even though me of my mixed heritage, my wife's Jamaican, my kids are African, okay? So I'm offended for them even seeing that shit. And I got to explain that to my kids if they see some shit like that when they get older. Now, it's a little different with my kids because they grew up in this, so they don't really know that level yet. But we're all going to be exposed to it, all right? But it was just unbelievable. All right, let me finish with this, and I'll take some questions. I wanted to get through more. You see where this is going, I hope. Here's another example the author uses. I began reading a series of novels after receiving the first one as a present from my parents on my 9th birthday in 1974. Now, notice the author is in his late 50s. Notice how vivid he can recall these particular incidents to show you how effective this aspect is. These books had a profound effect on me for many years and still have pride of place on my shelves. But I always remember the very first one and the circumstances, that's the important thing, in which I received it. Notice when he reflects upon the books, not only does he have a special connection with the books he received at 9 years old in the year 1974, but as soon as he connects with the books, he immediately can recollect the circumstances, things that were going on at that time when he was given that first book. That's some powerful shit. Those are key moments of understanding about ourselves. These are the imprints or the stamps that are put on our subconscious mind that we call traumas, and not all traumas are bad, good or bad. These are key components we need to revisit and utilize this science of rejuvenation and change our way of thinking. This is key, right? Then he goes on to say, to handle it now rekindles that sense of excitement and delight. The book was read in its entirety on my birthday, largely like we were on a family picnic on the beach. So now he's recalling a specific day. They were on the beach. A family picnic took place. So he's recovering all of this, going back over 50 years ago. So now, listen, man, shit. If we have the power to do this, think how the media can program and control you by certain images, because they can block this stuff out. Because remember, when you're watching news, you're watching TV, you're watching movies, there's an X amount of images that flash before the screen, and I forgot the exact number, but it's crazy, and they get stamped in your subconscious mind. How do you know that? Reflect back when you were a child and there were certain horror movies that stayed with you, to the point where I remember as a kid first seeing the movie The Exorcist. It scared the shit out of me. And I remember seeing it as a young child. The movie came out in, 72? I remember seeing it in the late 70s. I was about 6 years old. And let me show you how the mind's fucked up. The scene in the bed used to always freak me out. When she was in the bed and the bed would move and it would flip her and the bed would shake, I always remember struggling right after seeing that movie for a while, going to bed. I always used to feel like I always used to feel like the bed was shaking. And I used to feel like there was some spirit coming that was going to possess me or something. So don't tell me the images and the bullshit that they this works two ways, people. So they know if they have you sit in front of the idiot box all day and they're showing you images of people burning down restaurants, protesting, fighting, looting, death, sickness, despair, COVID-19, hopelessness, all of this shit, you're sitting there sucking this up like a sponge. Remember, your subconscious mind is like a computer. It's like a hard drive on a computer. It stores things in its memory, people. And sometimes this process here of using this methodology here of erotic crystallization inertia is like going onto your computer and doing a search on the file. Once you locate the file, you access it and boom, you're in there now doing the work. This is how this shit works. So we have to understand both spectrums of this thing, all right? We have to see how this works in its totality. So there's what's going on the surface, and there's what's going on underneath the surface. Now, let me give you an example. And how keeps you programmed without getting too far, because I don't want to start drifting into a bunch of shit, is breaking linear time. I talk about it all the time. Linear time is an illusion. It doesn't exist. They operate between the tick and the tock, which you paid no attention to. They did a concentrated effort to take you out of analog into digital. They did that shit for a reason. Remember all the old secondhand clocks? They still exist, usually only in public or government buildings and places like that. You don't see them no more. I always talk about this. You see the second hand. Notice they call it a second hand. 60 seconds equal a minute. It should be first, but that's a whole nother story. And it goes tick, pause, tock. So how many seconds are really in a minute? Because there's a pause or a space in between the tick and the tock that is not being calculated as linear time. So where does that time go? Where does that? They know this. They operate between the tick and the tock because they know how. We do too, but we lost that knowledge. If we learned how to do it, because really the void, the abyss, when you say you're tapping in and you are raising or ascending out of person, place, or thing, you're saying you're obsolete from three-dimensional. You are now vibrating between the tick and the tock where these spirits reside, for lack of a better word. I'm just trying to give you something mentally you could grasp. So there's a fuckery in that we have to pay attention to, okay? Who is calculating the space between the tick and the tock? That's all I want to know. And really, what is this linear time or Gregorian time we've been using for years, and how accurate really is it? There's a big thing, a buzz on the internet now. Remember how in 2012, where they were saying December 21st, 2012 was going to be the end of the world, doomsday, the great shift, and the earth was going to shift on its axis, etc. Well, there's people saying that June 21st is that day, according to the Aztec and Maya calendar, that because we calculated time wrong, we were 8 years off. Now, I'm not saying that June 21st, the end of the world is going to happen. I don't think that's the case. But I'm using the example how our calculation is all fucked up. All right? And all of it is to not get you to think. The only way this shit is going to change, and it can change, I want to make this clear. We are not a victim of our circumstances. Let me say that again. We are not a victim of our circumstances. If we change our way of thinking and we all get off our ass and do something and not accept Aunt Jemima being taken off a pancake box or Uncle Ben taken off the rice box, and if we say that's not enough and we keep forcing them to go another route, then things can change. So I don't care if anybody is solely into this. Yeah, it is global control. Yeah, it is New World Order. I'm down with all that shit. It's real. Okay? It's real. But we're not a victim to that. We have the ability to alter that. And it starts with knowledge of self. It starts with understanding what's really going on. Until we do that first, nothing can change, regardless of what anybody says. Regardless of what they know. And believe me, I for sure am not sipping on the Kool-Aid of this other group of people who claim to be conscious and are telling me the ancestors are coming to save us and Shango and all. No, I'm not sipping that Kool-Aid either. That's no different than a Christian believing in Jesus coming back on a cloud to save them and make it all right. That again is promoting lazy, idiotic bullshit, pie in the sky, will be rewarded later. Fuck that. I want to be rewarded right now. I want to see the change in the results right now, not after I'm gone. Because that's the easy way out. That's the cop out. Okay? All right, let's go through questions. I think I'm going to stop there. I think you get the point. Yeah, let's stop there. There's more to this. I just don't have the time to get into all of it. Let's start with some questions. I hope you guys got some questions on this. If you ain't got no questions on this, then shit, something wrong. All right. I will start from the top to be fair. All right. So infernal blessings to all. If I didn't greet you personally, I thank again Double R and some of you other people who gave me belated birthday wishes. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So let me look for questions here. Shout out to brother Donald James. That's one of the artists that we had on the show. Oh, my boy Peter Gosamia. All right. So let me look for some questions. Key question. Yeah, and that was Alex. Alex was the one who typed that in earlier to the Chick-fil-A dude. Exactly. He didn't offer that brother any stock in the company, any real change, right? He could have said, brother, to show you my sincerity. And he didn't even have to offer stock. I would have been impressed if he franchised him his own restaurant in his own neighborhood. I would have been impressed with that. At least it shows ownership and it shows leadership and change because that's some form of power. He'd be like, brother, I'm going to get your whole full restaurant. I'm going to pay the franchise fee. I'm going to get it up and running. I'm going to get everything you need to get started and you're going to own the restaurant. I'd have been cool with that. Yeah. I mean, think bigger. Stock in the company would have been great. A CEO position, a VP position, right? They don't want to do that because that's real power. So they say, here's a couple crumbs. Oops, look at that. The crumb from my muffin just fell on the floor. Go ahead, you can have that. You ain't getting the motherfucking muffin, but you can have those crumbs that fell on the floor. Go ahead and eat it up. And if you settle for that, then you deserve whatever's coming to you. All right, good point. What else we got? Yup, that is true. Ichigo Uzumaki, the master's going to eat it up too. They are. Merciless Butcher says it's all a ploy to make us think they're working on solving the problem at hand, which is only misdirection. That's exactly what it is. It's misdirection in the form of distraction. It's to distract you of the bigger picture. Again, people are talking about the police reform and reforming the legal system. I'm all for it. You're right. But real reform and change is going to be get these old crusty ass back of the neck, back of the woods, old redneck way of thinking Supreme Court judges, let them retire after a while. Don't let it be a life term, right? Maybe we need to readjust how that works, okay? Or shorten the term, whatever it is. Maybe we need to get more people who think a different way in these positions. That's how you reform the system. You can't reform the system if you're going to keep the same way of thinking in there. Let me say that again. Banning a chokehold, great. That's not going to change anything. These judges that I showed you that case last week, these judges that are going to give one sentence to one dude who committed the same crime, same criminal record, same points, who was a young white male, and then the young black male who did the same exact thing, same points, same crime, and had no criminal record either. You're going to give him 20 plus years and this dude, 2 years? It's because it's the way of thinking. This is the good old boy, back of the woods, good old, Southern redneck justice. So he's not looking at that young black male the way a even-minded person would. He's saying black male bad, 20 plus years. Oh, this is the young white male. He just made a simple mistake. I'm gonna give him a slap on the hands, 2 years. We're gonna let him go. That's where the problem is, people. It's that simple. Get that type of judge out of there. You get him out of there, you start really bringing about real change, real reform, and then things can really start. There could be real justice, right? Everybody screams, we want justice. Well, it's not going to come just by banning chokeholds. It's fucked up. But these are the crumbs. Again, here. Oops, look at that. Piece of my chocolate cake just fell on the floor. You can have that. You ain't getting this shit right here. This is my cake. You ain't getting this shit. That's essentially what they're doing, people. All right, what else we got? What else we got? Yeah, Alex. I think you were referring to earlier questioning this concept when I was talking about when a tragedy takes place. That's the classic manipulation. They'll tell you your mind's manipulating you, or you don't question the God concept. If you do, you're blasphemous, or you're evil, or you're possessed by demons. But I always used to turn around and say, well, as quick as when a pastor tells you that, but I'm confused because all throughout the Gospels, Jesus said, ASK, ask. What does that symbolize? He said, ask, and ye shall be given. Seek, and ye shall find, and knock, and the door shall be open for you. So I'm doing what Jesus requested. I'm asking, I'm seeking, and I'm trying to know and understand. But the very example of the man you exemplify as the major prophet and savior of your religion, I'm using his example, and you're calling me I'm evil and I'm the devil and I'm this and I'm that because I want to know. What it really shows me, if you can't explain it, just shows how weak and pathetic your God is. That's all it shows me. And the very fact that you got to get emotional and react like that shows me you're in denial and your insecurities and fears are rising to the surface because you're getting mad because it's striking some type of response in you that you never really thought about. And maybe when you start thinking about it, it scares you. So you retaliate in that methodology. That's the response you get because of that. Because they know deep down inside, you might be scaring the shit out of them because you're getting them to think a way that they were programmed to think is wrong. It's dirty. You shouldn't think like that. So they're basically saying, don't be a living, breathing, intelligent being. And then again, it goes against the very principle in their own books. Because when I read the Bible and it says in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, that God breathed into man's nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. I take that as we all have the very essence of God or the Creator within us. We all, and Jesus confirmed it. Right? I'm going to use their shit on them. In John chapter 10, verse 34, when he was in the temple and the Pharisees attacked him, and they said, this man's crazy. He says he is God. They didn't understand what he was saying. He said, when you see me, you see God. Right? Blasphemy. And then he said, okay, you're not understanding me. So you think I'm talking about, he said, is it not written in your law to the Pharisees, right? Jesus was left-hand path when you really look at it. I keep telling people that. Jesus went against everything that the mainstream system at that time stood for. And just like he was attacked then, we'll get attacked the same way for thinking. This peaceful, loving shit that they teach about Jesus, that's not what I see when I read the Bible. He said, I come not to bring peace, but the sword. Right? It's right there. Go read it. Where did they get this turn the other cheek shit? Right? That's something that was incorporated in the Gospels later from disciples who were not part of the original 12 that were influenced by the teachings of Paul. That's a whole nother story. I don't have time for that right now. But he came, I come not to bring peace, but the sword. Is it not written in your law that ye are gods, children of the Most High? They looked at him like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he was referring to Psalms chapter 82, verses 1-6. Read it. When King David was talking to his congregation. And he was trying to say, I'm not saying what you think I'm saying, because when you read Psalms 82, King David stands in the congregation amongst the gods and says, all of you are gods, children of the Most High. But here comes the reality check right after that, people. But ye will die like men. That's what Jesus was trying to point out to the Pharisees. I'm not saying you're mythological God. I'm saying because we have the very essence and the soul of the Creator within us, we are all God's sons and God's children of the Most High. But they were trying to set them up. We mean the same thing when we say we're gods. One, because we take responsibility. We understand that science. Not your mythological old man God sitting in the sky. Not your monotheistic religious God. So when you read Psalms, Jesus was saying, and then you take it back to Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. I know what the fuck he was talking about. It's clear as day to me, not confusing to me. And I told you, I've done classes on this. And people that took that class, I've done it twice, and I'm probably going to bring it back at some point. I'm going to show you how you study the Bible from a left-hand path perspective. I'm going to show you who that God of the Bible is. The Bible can be a very productive tool if you're reading it the right way, okay? Not how they try to jam it down your throat, because you got to understand how to decipher between the literal and the allegorical aspects of those books. It's very left-hand path in nature. You just got to know how to decipher it and decode it. And believe me, anybody that knows me, I could take you from Genesis to Revelation and then on through the 114 chapters of the Quran, which that's a whole nother story. All right? Get the point, though. What else we got? And there's a good point by Merciless Butcher. There is a right and wrong in everything we do. For us, we choose what is right. That's the key. You're supposed to make your choices and your decisions. You lay out your path to self-mastery. You decide what is right for you or wrong, not somebody else, and not somebody else making you feel guilty. And let me tell you something. How you know you're not in the right spiritual system when you feel forced or obligated to do something. Let me say that again. When you feel this compelling obligation to do it physically, but your mind is like, man, fuck this shit. I ain't feeling this shit. But then you still carry it out physically. That shows you're programmed and controlled, by the way, just so you know. If you got to force yourself to do it, and in here, you're just not feeling the shit, then there's something wrong, people. There's a disconnect there you need to investigate. You need to check yourself and what it is you're doing. This is why people get on this path. I've said this before, and they try to bring the Orishi shit in, and the watered down Kemetic stuff, and the Sumerian stuff, and the New Age fluffy bunny, chubby bunny shit. And they think they're just gonna stamp it with a few pentagrams and some occult sayings and phrases, and then they want to present themselves as an occultist. No, that's not. That's watered down. That's basically they're occult Christians. And what it does is basically combines a whole conflicted concept of what the occult and the left-hand path is, and it creates confusion. Then you started doing shit that's all out of whack because you're not able to put it into its correct perspective. And I could be here all day telling you crazy stories over the years of people I know who have this problem, but I'm not even gonna waste my time and energy. I'm saying all that simply to say to the point, it's time for a new way of thinking, a new energy. We're dealing with pure aspect of the mental right now. None of those traditional paradigms are going to help you. They've ran their course. Did they serve a purpose at a time? Yes, they did. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is we got people still trying to reenact practices from hundreds and thousands of years ago that were effective then, but just are not the same effectiveness now. They're only effective, and I quote Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum in Dark Light Consciousness. He said, he used the example of the ancient Egyptians. The only way the practices of the ancient Egyptians will help us in this day and time is if we take those practices and we update them to the now. We got people that want to walk around and still dress and play Egyptian. So what does that tell you? Their mind is stuck back then. And then all they want to do is spit this bullshit of how great we used to be back in the day. Back in the day this, we used to be this, back, fuck all that. I don't want a back in the day lecture anymore. How can we be great now, today, June 19th, 2020. Today's Juneteenth Day, right? Let's make it an occult day. Today's supposed to be, they say, the day slavery was abolished. Let's also use this as, make this as your starting point. Today is the day your mental slavery is officially abolished. Let's take it to a higher level. Because there's a trick in that, getting your mind to go back to the mammy and pappy shit and rights and Rosa Parks and love Rosa Parks. They act like the civil rights movement and slavery is the only part of the glorious history of African people. They never want to take you back to Egypt. They never want to take you back to primitive Africa. They never want to take you back to the Neolithics, as if that's where your greatness comes from, the civil rights movement. And I'm saying that with all due respect. I'm not at any level belittling what people went through in the civil rights movement, because I know that was torture. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying there's a concentrated effort as if that is the only point of the greatness. That has to stop. That has to stop. We need to think outside of that box again. All right. What else we got? Yes, Mystic Moons. She quotes, there is a phrase in the Bible that says, there's two. You take one step to God, he takes 10 steps towards you. And God only helps those that help themselves. Faith without works is dead. God doesn't dwell in houses only made by man's hands. The real temple of God dwells within man, right? So we got conflicting thoughts. We have those who gravitate towards the exoterical or the external stuff. And then apparently God likes to be confusing, and then he gives a more esoterical breakdown of it. You do the math. So yes, that is true. All right, what else we got? Looking for some questions, people. Sethian True. No, the Santa Muerte class, I don't know what time you typed this in. I addressed that earlier. For those, just to answer Sethian True's question, the Santa Muerte class is next Saturday. That's June 27th from 3 to 6:30 p.m. It'll be a private class on Zoom. That class is open for all. Anybody can sign up for it. It's separate from the Patreon. It has nothing to do with the Patreon page. You can sign up to that class by going to PayPal. It's $55. And in the PayPal notes, use the canoom19@gmail.com email address, which is right here in the description box. You send your $55 payment, but please include in the notes your name and email address where you would like the link for the class to be sent. Because, again, I get people that have other people pay for it through other people's PayPals, and I automatically send the link to them. I don't know that you have a different email address. So if it's, you just specify that in your notes. So yes, that class is open for all. That will take place next Saturday. Also tomorrow, for those who are members on the Patreon page, I will be performing a live Leviathan ritual that I wrote myself. We will be discussing it after with a Q&A. I put a video up for tier 3, 4, and 5 members, how to prepare for the ritual. I am encouraging participation, not just watching. I would hope you guys are able to participate, and that will be tomorrow at 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So just to clarify some of that, all right? Nikki, hey, yes, I do, but I'm not going to get into that here. Rituals to bring a lover to you. That would be something you would need to do with me in a private consultation. I'm not going to get into that here. All right. Bridget says, I was told by spirit that I am Hecate's, not Santa Muerte's. What does that mean? I'd like to take the class, but got to wait till last minute due to lack of funds. That can mean a multitude of things. So I can only speculate. But spirits will sometimes step forward and lay a certain claim to you. So I would take that as this. Doesn't necessarily mean you should not work with anybody but Hecate. It could possibly mean that she's taking a special interest in you. That's how I would take that. You should never, ever be limited or obstructed from your paths being open and free and experimenting and exploring. I'm not saying that you took it as that, but I'm just putting it out there. That's how I would perceive that. That will definitely happen. That will happen with people. All right. Again, Dee Dee Heyman, thank you for the donation. Don't worry, Bridget. If you go, Bridget, if you go to the Patreon page, you can see all the 5 tiers just for the sake of time, so I don't have to explain it. If you just go to patreon.com/Beniti, right on the front page, it has all the tiers, what the tiers include, and then the price for each tier. So all your questions are answered if you just go to the main page, okay? Yes, if you are tier 4 and 5, you are entitled to a one 30-minute reading or consultation a month on the Patreon, but that's only for tiers 4 and 5. So there is an option on there. Outside of that, if you are not a Patreon member and you're interested in a reading, you need to reach out to me. I charge $55 an hour to do a reading. If you just are not a member of Patreon and you're looking for a reading or a consultation, that's entirely up to you. And you need to send me an email, the days and times you're available, and the time zone you live in, and that can be arranged, okay? And I appreciate Gypsy Mermaid for the support on the readings. Appreciate that. Yeah, the APL, the 5G people disappeared. I was riding their ass hard in March and April, but they ghost. You don't see them nowhere no more. They ain't talking about it no more because it was, again, we got to be careful we don't get sucked into that shit because that's a distraction. Just like this shit on the news is a distraction, we got people amongst us who create these conspiracy theories. They're part of the agenda too because they create a distraction. And I said out the gate, and I'm on record saying it. You can go back to my videos back in March and April. I was saying it. I called it back then. It's bullshit. It's going to die out, and it holds no weight. And I'm telling you, that's fact. So, yeah, they disappeared. Oh, I remember that Faces of Death movie when they were eating China. Yeah, and that confirms when stuff is stamped in your subconscious mind, it stays with you good or bad. It can have an effect, good or bad. All right. What else we got? All right. So see, Gypsy Mermaid says also Funky Town. My mom had a navy blue. Yes, you're going to be able to recall specific things. Very easy. Music is a great source for time travel magic. It's a great tool to use for rejuvenation and healing and repairing of cells. It can slow back the aging process when you listen to music of a time and era when you were very rejuvenated and you had a lot of youth and vitality. I told you, when you listen to music of it, you feel that. And I've shared many times before in the past how I've created playlists of music on my Amazon app from decades and genres. And I'll use that while I'm working out and in the gym. And at the same time, I'm being productive, multitasking, I'm exercising, doing something productive, but I'm also performing an aspect of music magic and time travel simultaneously. So I'm exercising, trying to get healthy, and I'm time traveling, and I'm using magic through the power of music. That's how powerful music is. And that's how we need to start being able to fluctuate. So music is, I say it's symbolically a gift from the gods. It's one of the most precious gifts that we have. Music can strike all types of emotional aspects in us. So, yep. WFHH, what if memory is a blur due to substantial childhood trauma? Then there's clinical hypnosis. Dr. Edward Bruce Bynum has been on the show. He's talked about that. He is obviously a clinical psychologist at a UMass, and that's one of his fields of specialty. And usually a person who has problems recalling, they need to go under some clinical hypnosis to recollect. It's there, but as you said, the blur or the trauma is created by that trauma. So that's probably a route. Say you're really sincere and want to unlock that because you're really trying to address it and you're struggling. That's a way. You'd probably have to take a route like that to unlock it. And that has happened. That has come up many times over the years before with people that I've known and associated with. And they've utilized that process successfully. All right. But that's a very good question. All right, what else we got? Oh, shout out to Ravens here. Okay. Lowland Sine or Sine. I don't know if I pronounced it wrong. All right. I feel rejuvenated with Bach and Mozart. What does that mean? Well, one, it means the tones and the frequencies and the vibration of the music create a certain effect within you. So the sounds resonate with you. Now, I don't know if there's a history there that digs deeper. Now, if you weren't exposed to this as a childhood, or there wasn't, if you just stumbled across it and it's something that you started to inherit or liken to later without a past history of it, sometimes we can develop likens to this because it could have been in a past life or existence you had it connected to it. That's another possibility. But it starts basically with step one. There's something about the sound, the tones, the pitches, the frequencies and the vibrations of the music that create a certain effect in your body and your mind. So that's why you resonate towards it. So it's a good thing. Doesn't necessarily, it's not so much what it means in its totality, it's what it means to you personally. So that's how I would kind of evaluate that. If you don't have no past connection to that, past history connection to it, and it's something you gravitated towards later in your life, that's probably the reason why. More than likely, but there could be more to it. I'm not sure. Serpent-Headed Mask says, I feel rejuvenated with death metal bands like Nile, Bolt Thrower, Morbid Angel, and Great Lyrically too. Again, could be for the same reason. Something there resonates. Not sure how old you are or what your history or connection is with metal bands, but it could be there's something in the vibration and the energy of the music that connects with the aspect of you. And music does that. We all listen to music for that reason. That's usually the foundational reason why we listen to music. But again, it could be more if there's a history there. Ninhersag. Hi, glad I caught you. Well, I'm glad you caught me too, if you're still here. Welcome. All right, Bridget says she loves Morbid Angel too. Serpent-Headed Mask is off topic. Which Coming Forth by Daybrook author do you recommend? Raymond Faulkner's translation is the one I've been using for years. It might be Raymond O. Faulkner or just Raymond Faulkner. Faulkner. First name Raymond. I've been using his for a long time. I have a nice hardbound with an Egyptian scarab on it. I use it actually for, there's a Black Massa set that I wrote a couple of years ago. And there's two spells I use out of there, spell 8, and I think the other one is 70-something. I can't remember. And I use that in the ritual. I got more of a fancier one because I do use, when I'm working Egyptian Heka or Egyptian black magic, I do use my Coming Forth by Day for some spell work. But Raymond Faulkner or Raymond O. Faulkner. Matter of fact, hold on, let me grab it. I have it here just so I'm giving you the correct information. I have it right here. Yeah, it's Raymond O. Faulkner. That's why I wanted to get it. I got this a few years back at Barnes & Noble a while back. This is it. It's beautiful. You might still be able to go online and get it. It's actually, this is like almost a crystal. It's a real crystal. It's see the author, Raymond O. Faulkner. I like it because if you look at the inside, the illustrations of it, very detailed, glossy finish. Then you see the spells. It's got beautiful Egyptian and papyrus designs. It's got images right off, see that, right off the temple, statues from ancient Egypt. It's got a really, I mean, just look at the detail and the artwork in here. That's why I like it. You can really connect with this book. See that? And you see all the spells listed below it. It's got the text in its entirety. I've been using this one for years. Again, Raymond O. Faulkner. Again, I got this at Barnes & Noble years back. I'm not sure if it's still available. It's hardcover. That's the back. See that? That's an actual scarab beetle. That's a real imitation type of stone. But that's the one I've been using for a year. That's the one I use in rituals. I just wanted something nicer. I know there's a lot of basic paperback versions and shit out there, but I wanted something that, because I use it in ritual and spell work, I wanted something that was a little bit more, had a little more zing to it, if you want to say. All right, what else we got? Amazing Meanie, what's up? Got to give you a buzz. Hope everything is well. All right, what else we got here? Going to finish up with these last couple. You going to get the food?
Yeah.
All right, I'm wrapping it up in a few minutes. All right. Kashaptu, XUL. I believe if that's the same Kashaptu that just signed up for the mentorship program today, I sent you a message. I'll check to see if you responded. I think that's you, if I'm not mistaken. WFH research. That's a very good question. And I have a lot of clients that I deal with that. How do you process the trauma of rape if it happened after all these years? It still looms. One, I'd rather talk to you in private about that, but one, it's going to loom, obviously. That's very normal. We'd have to talk in detail, you know, obviously the person has to be comfortable. The circumstances around it. There is a process to deal with it. That's whether it's child abuse, rape, those are very sensitive and detailed issues. And as I said before, it amazes me in doing this how probably 1 out of every 3 clients I deal with has been a form of some type of rape or sexual abuse from family members. It just blows me the fuck away how common it is. Not right, but common. It's fucked up. There is, but again, I'd rather discuss that in private. There's a way you have to address it. There's certain things you can do. But sometimes it's, you know, it's fucked up because I know especially women that were children say that were raped by adults or family members. One, I've won another statistic that has blown me away, how they actually to this day still think that they were wrong or at fault. So sometimes it's as simple as formally forgiving yourself for something you couldn't control. Sometimes it's as simple as looking in the mirror, sincerely looking at yourself, as painful as it might be. Sometimes it's not being able to release that traumatic event. Now, there's more detailed stuff. Again, that's something I'd rather talk about in private, but I commend you for being courageous to step forward with that, because that is not an easy topic to talk about. But yes, you'll be surprised how that can affect somebody's spiritual path evolving and growing, because usually people who have experienced that type of trauma are either can't function in regular relationships anymore, or they become oversexed in relationships. That's a very common denominator. They usually suffer on a whole other level, and it can affect their spiritual growth because it's never been dealt with. So it is a difficult situation. All right. But again, something I'd probably rather talk about in private. But I commend you for coming forward with that. What else do we have? Lola Ashan. So if you were an old gangster and that's when you were the most rejuvenated, I'm not telling you to go back to being a gangster, but ain't nothing wrong with taking your inner child back to them times when if that's the period where you were at your peak. Yes, you would have to connect with that old gangster. All right, what else we got? Good to hear that you do go back in time and flip the script just in time. Greetings, Annie. I sent you a message. I got to check, see if you responded back. Yeah, for those that are in the mentorship program and we have calls tomorrow, I've reached out to you guys. I haven't had a chance to check. I'm sure you guys responded. Due to the fact, those of you who are in the Saturday afternoon time slot, we're going to have to change your time this week due to the Leviathan ritual tomorrow. So I did reach out to some of you to get back with me to see if we can flip that time and work around it. So we won't be able to do it at the regular time tomorrow due to the ritual, okay? Excuse me. Salvia can help some people. All right. Yes, that's a good point, Mystic Moon. What if one does the work and gets stuck in a traumatic loop, which can happen when the situation is severe? There's ways to work through it. It can happen. You just have to stay at it consistently. If you could get caught in the loop, you constantly revisit it till you can alter the circumstances. Remember, we talked about earlier about bridging that gap between the then and the now. And that basically means erasing the pain from that traumatic event, from that moment that it created to the now. So you would just have to keep doing it. And eventually, it's like anything in life. You might have to try several times. You're not going to permanently get stuck in the loop. Can it repeat itself a bunch of times because you're struggling to get by it? Yes. But you're definitely not stuck there permanently. So you'd have to stay at it. All right. Michael says, man, I appreciate this so much. Okay. We appreciate you and everybody else here. Yeah, like I say earlier, I wasn't trying to, when I was talking about some of the stuff earlier, I wasn't trying to step on nobody's heads. I was trying to smash skulls because we got to stop being spoon-fed and this oversensitive shit. Like we got to be careful. Look, I'd rather we get the truth straight out the gate than be lied to, regardless of what that is. Okay. I think the times for the bullshit and beating around the bush are over. It's over. We ain't got time for it no more. Let's just get down to the nitty gritty. Let's do what needs to be done and stop pacifying people because we got to say things that this is what they need to hear so they can feel comfortable. We ain't in a day and a time where you're supposed to be feeling comfortable. If you're feeling comfortable now, something wrong with you. You should not be feeling comfortable now. You should feel more motivated now than anything. You should be looking at what's going on around you and going, it's happening. And then you should be looking at yourself, well, what am I doing to make the transition with what's happening? That's it. That's all I'm trying to say. And if we're not doing that, there's something wrong. I know I'm doing it, trying to the best of my ability. I ain't sitting around waiting for nothing. I ain't waiting for no handout. I ain't waiting for nobody to do shit for me. I ain't waiting for nothing to come back. I'm not waiting for any ancestors. I'm not waiting for any gods or spirits to come flying out of the sky to wage war and fix nothing for me. I know they reside within me, and I'm going to have to activate the powers of them within me and bring it about to make that change. That's what I do know. Okay? Outside of that, shit ain't real to me. All right, what else we got? Yeah, Gypsy Murray's Stockholm Syndrome too, with that fake guilt, yo. Yeah, it's a good point by Seth Logan. He says, Beniti, I had some connections or aha moments. And aha moments are basically what we call on this path moments of Kepera or Kepher. Moments of realization, self-realization to who and what we really are and what's going on around us. We call it aha moments, but it's really moments of Kepher or Kepera, as some say. Moments of self-realization. And that's your goal. Kepera or Kepher is not something you can plan a ritual to obtain. Anybody that tells you that's bullshit. Kepera is something you're always striving to, and you're always having consistent experiences with it. And you drive yourself to it via the consistency of your work and your rituals and your study. So there's no such thing as creating a ritual for Kepera. You're constantly striving for it at all times, right? So you find that those things start to happen a lot more consistently, right? What else we got? Yes, good question by Mystic Moons. Can the triggers be used during ritual work, e.g. trigger anger to drive ritual work to get a result? Yes, because you can take anger in a negative aspect that can be destructive to yourself, and you can direct it via passion towards the intent of a ritual working. And that's why I said all anger is not bad. Anger is not bad. It's just how it's channeled. Anger is only destructive when you have no control over it, and you say and do stupid things with no control. But you can be very angry and passionate about something and direct it towards obtaining a ritualistic goal. Now you've channeled that same aggression and that same passion towards an intent. That's a different. Then I'm just angry and pissed off at everybody. I just want to destroy shit and fuck everybody up. That's a destructive anger that can get you killed. That's a different type of anger. Yeah. And Cicero says the guilt reaction is just the polarity of their thoughts and feelings, just an equal and opposite response. True indeed. Ninher says, I'm from Yorkshire, UK, and now it's easier for me to call out racism when I see it, which is often around here. Good for you. What else we got? Yeah, the kneeling down shit gets me sick too. It's another good point by Diosa. Yeah. Yeah, it was probably the Chick-fil-A dude, his friend. Like I said, I just can't believe this motherfucker said he wanted to shine his shoes. Man, that blew me away. Just when you think you say, man, I'm sitting there watching this shit like, what the fuck is he getting ready to do? And when I saw, he said, sir, and he's a good old boy too, and that's what I think made it even more annoying for me. Sir, I'd like to start right here and now and show you my sincerity by, I want to shine your shoes. I said, this motherfucker, I lost it. I said, well, God damn. What's next? Somebody going to come out tap dancing, Mr. Bojangles? Somebody going to come out in blackface? I mean, what's next? I said, God damn. I mean, it's just one of them moments where you can just shake your head. And that's all I could do. I was just like, and I remember turning to my wife. I said, you see this shit? And she just looked at me. I looked at her. She said, man, there's no limit to their bullshit. I'm telling you, man, we're going to see it all. We're getting ready to see it all. Demanding all white Christians to apologize to African Americans for slavery. I give him 1 point for creativeness. I see he tried to take it to another. Try to take that shit to another level. I'll give him that. He did. What else we got? Yeah, I talked about that. You got to understand, it was a ritual with that cop kneeling on George Floyd's neck. But when we say Masonic, we have to be careful, because to people that may or may not understand, I'm a Mason, and I've gone through the blue, the red house, and through the whole entire Scottish Rite. We have to establish there's this false concept of Masonry out there where people think, from watching all the conspiracy videos with the Illuminati and all that shit. Sorry to bust people's bubbles. I can attest from experience, not from my opinion, that stuff is not true. That stuff that is perpetrated by the masses to create conspiracies. Are there wealthy people in the world have created their own secret societies? Yes, but do not confuse that with real Masonry. There's the Order of the Owl. When you talk about certain Masonic orders that are classified Masonic, but they're really not. So there has to be an understanding of that. Was it some type of ritualistic event that they was enacting out? Yes. But when you pay close attention, I'm just throwing something out there. Look at the video of the police officer. Look at the mugshot and tell me if that's the same police officer that was kneeling on his neck. Brother Ravana brought to my attention a site I looked at to check that out. It's on Instagram. I can't recall it. I'll have to check it. There's some fishy shit going on there. Look at the picture closely of the officer kneeling on George Floyd's neck, and look at the mugshot of the officer that got arrested. Just telling you. Look, this was all in my opinion, and I'm not forcing my perspective or opinion down anybody's throat. I think this was planned. I think this was timed. The timing of it, the coronavirus going on, not getting the numbers and the responses that they were looking to get. Fauci disappears. They needed a distraction. All of a sudden, now that the riots have died down a bit, now Fauci pops up with the gloom and doom again, and now the focus. So I think they needed a gap or a period where they were doing something. And that was the distraction. I do believe everybody that got emotionally sucked into these last 3 to 4 weeks, that created a window for them to finish doing what they were trying to do. Why everybody was distracted and emotional about that shit, they were at work doing something. That I do know. I can tell you that 100% sure, because that was their goal. What can we do to distract the masses? Because remember, now they're coming out saying the vaccine won't be effective if more black people don't volunteer to do clinical trials of it. Let me say it again. And they have this black lady who's promoting this. They need more black people to volunteer to do clinical trials of this. I do believe this was all done for the masses. And to confirm that, as I said before in previous videos, the next place after Minneapolis that these riots popped off was where? Atlanta. That was the first city that opened back up. And that's one of the largest or the largest black city in the United States of America. You do the math. What I keep trying to tell you people, don't look at what you're seeing on the surface because they want you to get emotional. Look at the bigger picture. I'm telling you, when you do the research, look at the officer that's kneeling on George Floyd's neck in the video and look at the mugshot. That is not the same police officer. I'm not trying to pump conspiracy theories. I'm not trying to, downplay it. I'm just trying to tell you for what it is. Certain things I won't say because I don't want what I say to get misconstrued. So there's definitely an agenda at play. You just got to be smart enough to see it. Okay. All right. I'm going to have to skip some of this because I got to wrap this up. Yeah, you're right. Next to this, he did address that Chick-fil-A dude. I must have came in right on the tail end of that. And that's another word that I hate, minorities, because in essence, people of different nationalities and ethnicities that are of the melanin persuasion, you're straight up Africans, you're Latinos, and majority of your Asians, regardless of what they think they are, that's a game in itself. We're actually the majority, not the minority. So I hate that word. It's another word that just gets under my skin because that's part of subliminally indoctrinating people with misinformation. If you keep pumping that word minority, what follows that word? Inferiority. So they like to use that word. So what they're doing now is subliminal mind fuckery to still retain power. They still want to pump in your mind that you are a minority, that you still are not the majority. You will never have rulership or power. So we're going to take Aunt Jemima off the cake box for you. That's how they're insulting you. It's like spitting in your face. Again, crumbs from the master's table. Means nothing, and it will bring about no real change. Sorry. And anybody that gloats in that and thinks it's something big or special, regardless of what your race is, you're a complete bumbling idiot. You're a fool. Okay, it's the only word to describe you. F-O-O-L. Fool. It's going to bring about no change. What else we got? Yeah, the soundtrack to Jaws. Remember that? Dan it. See, I'm telling you, man, you can tap into that science on a whole. Yeah, man. What else we got? All right. Lost my spot. Man. Shit. Man, lost my spot. Damn, totally lost my spot. Damn. All right, shit. But I'm just gonna finish here. I lost, man. I totally. Obviously, I don't have time to get to everybody, so I apologize if I couldn't get to your question or comment. But here's something that I just stopped at randomly by P. Anderson. This is a good quote. And man, you hit it on the head. And I've been saying this shit for years. And man, catching the Holy Ghost. Hallelujah. Let me stop. P. Anderson says, I've been saying this again and again. The only language they understand is money. It's why the NFL is sucking up ass right now, because 70% of the players in the NFL are black. It's why the Chick-fil-A man did that fake ass gesture, because he knows well over 65% of his customers are black. And the only language they understand, you hit them in their pockets and you start taking their money, that's what they understand. And that goes back to what I've been saying for years. Money is power. Those who have no power and no money affect nothing that goes on in this world. I don't care. You could get spooky and spiritual. You could be passionate about your spirituality. That's great. Kumbaya and all that good shit that comes along with it. Real power comes in holding certain positions and having an X amount of money. That's how these motherfuckers are just able to just come on the scene and control shit, because they got the resources, they got the money, and they got the power. NFL don't give a fuck about black players. Stop it. Because if they really did, he would have said, Goodell in that original apology, Colin Kaepernick, contact me tomorrow, hit me up. I was wrong. I'm going to make sure you get a job in the NFL. He didn't do that. So it was fake. What they did do was they got together and said, oh shit, we better come up with some fake apology for the black community, because they might stop supporting us. They might wake up one day and not watch the games anymore and not buy the, not spend millions of dollars on the jersey and the paraphernalia, not spend thousands of dollars on season tickets and, $25 to $30 parking the game. I'm telling you, because I'm a sports fan. I ain't going to hide it. I know what it's like to have season tickets to a sports team. I know the cost of paying that parking. I know the ridiculous $7, $8 for a beer or a soda. Come on, man. They fucking raping you, and then they shit on you. I'll be honest with you. I'm a huge football fan, but I'm disgusted with the NFL right now. I'm a Giants fan. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not saying I'm not going to watch the games, but the way I feel right now, it's going to be tough, because I just don't like what I'm seeing there. I think it's fucked up. It's the best way I could describe it. But P. Anderson, you were right on point. Okay, that's the only language they understand. My mother used to say something years ago, right? If anybody would come at her with some nonsense, she would say, money talks, bullshit walks. All she used to say. You came at her with some nonsense. I heard her say that 1,000,000 times to me and people, to my sisters, to friends, family, in discussions. She used to say it all the time. That's what money talks, bullshit walks. That's the motto we need to live by. So when they come at us with this fake shit, that's what we got to say. You know what? That's cool. And money talks, bullshit walks. So take that bullshit and walk out of here, because that ain't doing nothing. And this is why we've been spoon-fed in all these religious systems. Subconsciously, against our own awareness, we've embraced poverty. I said years ago, I don't know how poverty got synonymous with spirituality. It has, amongst a lot of people. Like, oh, don't worry. Yeah, there's a great reward for you after. Go channel your inner Buddha, peace and love. No. This has happened along the way. A lot of people have embraced poverty with their spirituality as if it's some great badge of honor to wear. I'm sorry, I totally disagree with that. If your spirituality is not making you successful in financial, or finances are not included in that, I don't want nothing to do with it. I don't want to practice it, because it's another poor man's religion. And it's all it does is allude me to reward later and pie in the sky at some point. I don't want my pie in the sky. I want it right now. All right. Mitchell Ford, happy belated. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. Same thing from Gage. I appreciate that. Yeah, Gage, as Gage confirms, I've used the Apophis book in probably is my 7th or 8th video. If you have not read that book from my recommendation yet, this is about seeing through the eye of Leviathan. When you see through the eye from the side of looking through the eye, and you're not on the other side, you see things totally different. Okay, and that's what I'm essentially getting or trying to show people. All right, what else we got? I'm gonna have to skip through this, man. I'm glad you guys had a lot here, but I apologize. Jesus was he was no joke, the real Jesus. And like I say, you hear me or might think I bash the Bible. No, I bash the Bible of the way it's taught to us. I've gone back and said 1,000,000 times over the years in videos, there's an esoterical way to study the Bible. I've done classes on this. Some of you in here now have taken those classes. I show you the occult esoterical way to study the scriptures from Genesis all the way to Revelations, into the 114 chapters of the Quran and the lost books, the book of Barnabas, some of the lost gospels, and I show you why they were taken out. And I show you, when you really understand this character that they are falsely teaching called Jesus, Jesus, I said this a million times. You can go back and see me saying this in old videos. By nature, Jesus was left-hand path. He was anti the establishment. He was an anti-conformist. He went to the poor, the destitute, the broke, the derelicts of that area. He hung amongst prostitutes, tax collectors, thieves. He didn't go to the righteous and the holy are thous. But why don't you see Christians doing this? They shun away majority of those people. They don't even want to reach out to them. They abhor some of them. Jesus went to the derelicts and the misfits of his time. He was a nonconformist from day one. He was left-hand path. I think I'm going to do a class, the left-hand path Jesus. I just got some motivation from the Holy Spirit. Raise the roof, raise the roof. I'm going to do a video on the left-hand path Jesus. Just gave me an idea. All right. All right. Running out of time here, people. I got to wrap it up. All right, people. I'm sorry I got to stop there. Tried to get to majority of the questions and the comments. Before I go again, I'll see some of you guys tomorrow at the Leviathan Ritual. If you're a member on the Patreon page, tier 3, 4, and 5, 3 p.m. Eastern time. Again, if you have access, you can unlock the post. It has the direct Zoom video link to come in. All you got to do is just go to the post, click the link, and that'll bring you right into the ritual. If you are participating, be in your ritual attire, have your altar set up, and we will get into Leviathan ritual. We will have a question and answer right after the ritual with those that are participating, and we will go from there. Other than that, if you need to reach out to me for a spiritual reading or a consultation, shoot me an email, days and times you are available, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Other than that, I appreciate everybody tuning in. We will talk soon. Infernal blessings to all, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.